My name's Rachel Morgan. I'm the knowledge broker for the Threatened Species Recovery Hub, one of the NRM hubs. So I'm going to build on what Martine in particular talked about earlier to flesh out a little bit about about our research, some of our research collaborations that are of interest, but also some of the questions that come up about forging partnerships for practice for threatened species recovery. So as Martine mentioned, we have in the Threatened Species Recovery Hub over 120 partner organisations, and Elisa gave a great example of the richness of our partnerships in just showcasing the partnerships for her project alone. That doesn't take into account that we also relate to over 20 separate areas of the Commonwealth Department of Environment and Energy, which is our main funding body, multiple areas of different state and territory governments, and we also have emerging partnerships in new areas, including with the business sector, with different NRM organisations, with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander leaders and groups. And just to do a call out on some of our work with Indigenous leaders, we have an Indigenous reference group and an Indigenous liaison officer, Brad Mogridge, who are helping connect us across the country and also helping to guide the NEST program as a whole in developing more Indigenous-led research and involving more partnerships that are led and guided by Indigenous researchers, which is something we're very keen to build on ourselves. So I'm going to start by showcasing a few of the collaborations that have kind of that are taking place or have come to fruit recently. We've got two books that have just come out recently. These are just two examples of the rich collaborations that we have. The first was launched last month in Melbourne. That's the Federal Assistant Minister for the Environment, Melissa Price, who's launching the book there. It's called Recovering Australian Threatened Species, and to give an example of how of what the book is about, there are over 100 co-authors from more than 70 agencies that have come together to write this book. So this book, as the name suggests, is a book of hope. It's a book of conservation optimism, and it's also a book that really highlights the powerful role that partnerships play in effective action for threatened species recovery and for biodiversity conservation more generally. So as Minister Price herself said when she launched the book, this book demonstrates how the common goal of saving a threatened species can connect scientists, policymakers and the community to devise and deliver practical and often ingenious solutions. It's a celebration of incredible achievements by incredible people and organisations, but it also highlights that with the right elements, threatened species recovery is possible, is underway, and we can all contribute. And I mean, those are the nice words of a minister, but I think they really are a testament to what the book is aiming to showcase, which is that we know that conservation action and threatened species recovery is almost always incredibly complex. It involves multiple players, multiple responsibilities, multiple knowledges from different sources, and bringing that together is always a challenge. So while we talk about our partnerships, this is also a celebration of all the partnerships that emerge organically or deliberately through the course of people saving species, recovering ecological communities and generally doing conservation work across a whole bunch of different responsibilities and arenas. Another recent collaboration that's culminated in a book is this book, Monitoring Threatened Species and Ecological Communities, that's recently been published, and we're launching this tomorrow afternoon. We invite you all to join us at 5 o'clock. There's flyers there with more information, or it's in your conference program, but as a little bit of a taster, there will be a bar tab, so first in best dressed on that one. Again, this is a collaboration with dozens and dozens of agencies and many researchers who've come together to look at the challenges and opportunities of threatened species conservation and particularly of monitoring threatened species, something that we don't, as we found in the book and confirmed, we don't do particularly well pretty much across the board, and we need to start getting better at. So it's a book that is more highlighting the need for greater investment and greater collaborations, but also looking at those excellent pieces of work that are happening, for example, through community involvement here in South Australia. And this is a photograph from Doug Bickerton, whose chapter showcases the community-driven work on monitoring here in South Australia. So a few other projects that are relevant to this particular part of the world and that I just want to speak to briefly, but that we will also be speaking in more depth in a couple of days at our TSR Hub Roadshow that's happening here at the University of Adelaide on Thursday. So if you're able to stay over an extra day and you're able to join us, pick up a flyer, register for that, come along to that as well, and you'll hear more in depth about these projects and many more that are relevant to the state. But I also think the other thing I wanted to say about our roadshows is that we're making a real effort not just to showcase our work and present our work, but to have time within those roadshows for interaction, for feedback, for hearing from people from different sectors, so that actually feeds into how we do our research, so that we understand better what's valuable in our research and what's the most important parts of it, and so that we can also talk about how we can work together to communicate and get those results out there that are most relevant to people working as managers on the ground or as decision makers in policy or in any other sector. So please come and join us for that event. A few of the pieces of research that will be showcased at that event. This is a fabulous collaboration that our hub is involved in and plays a role in, but it's a role that has stepped into very elaborate and very established pre-existing relationships and of course community engagement around recovering the malleefowl. So this is an adaptive management experiment trying to put into place test sites to understand the effectiveness of predator control, particularly fox control, on malleefowl breeding activity, and whether it has the effects we hope it has, or whether some of those effects are not, are perhaps even made more complex by other interactions that might go on. So there will be 40 adaptive management sites in total. I think there's actually more than 15 currently collecting, but that's the latest number I've heard, but I think more have been established since then. You can see the dots on the map showing where all of those sites exist, and this also builds on the back of long-term monitoring over 90 sites. So this is a very rich partnership of 20 organisations of fantastic citizen science work, and one that we hope will actually be able to not just tell us what's going on with malleefowl and predator control, but also showcase how working together in this kind of large-scale way can really tell us a lot more and help us understand a lot better how to monitor and how to do adaptive management work. Another fabulous piece of work which is ongoing but has already had some great wins is a collaboration with in WA, in the Pilbara region, with the Martu people through their KJ organisation, looking at how we can integrate the knowledge of the Martu people with ecological knowledge to establish more effective on-ground bilby monitoring and management, and do so in a way that's culturally relevant and that therefore will be maintained and sustained by the Martu people on their own country. So we've had a report come out about that, and that's the initial report which has been co-authored with Martu and TSR Hub researchers, showcasing the Martu knowledge and kind of bringing together the Martu knowledge that has been used to create this new monitoring program. A couple of features of it, so there's been species distribution models and other things that have fed into it, but they've also seeded some of those models using expert knowledge from the Martu people. The survey methods are based on traditional tracking methods, so they're ones that they're already able to integrate and incorporate into the tracking methods that they're already using on country. And so it's a program that's already up and running on Martu country. And we're happy to tell you more about that. So Anya, who's led the work from our end, will be presenting that in a couple of days. Just one other shout out I wanted to give. Chris Dickman couldn't be here, but he is coming to the very end of the day on Thursday to talk more about the collaboration that he's had underway for a long time with the Department of Environment and Water, as it's now called, in South Australia, and a number of other players looking at the long-term monitoring data that's been collected but that hasn't necessarily been systematically analysed. So our researchers have been able to come in and help out with that by applying some of that analysis, and also by looking at what what that analysis is telling us about kowari trajectories, about kowari ecology, about some of the key threats, and will inform actions around hopefully saving the kowari in a number of ways. But I'll let Chris speak to that some more in 2 days, because I caught up with him recently, but I'm not quite clear on what I can release publicly, so I'll let him make those decisions. So I just wanted to finish by talking a little bit about what I think some of the key challenges and opportunities are in forging effective partnerships. We know from a lot of analysis and a lot of hard work that, that achieving impact with research is based primarily on partnerships. It's based on trust and relationships, and that the most immediate pathway to uptake of your research, if you are a researcher, say, in a university, is to work on the ground, co-produce research with your partners side by side, so that you're generating research that is meaningful, but that also makes those slight adjustments along the way as you find new things. You're able to build those in, whether it be from the practitioner side or the researcher side or the policymaker side. So the richer your partnerships, the more effective that research is and the more likely it is to be taken up. But what do we do about that, and how do we scale that up? I think one of the biggest challenges that we face, even though we're quite a large hub, is having an impact that is bigger than a single project and a single collaboration. And I think that's a challenge that probably most of us in this room face in some sense. The middle term on the first line there is key: time. It's very, very hard for any of us to find the time to do this right all the time, to build those stakeholder relationships, to build that trust, to invest in that. Academics have other incentives, practitioners have other incentives, and actually investing the time to build that trust, to build those relationships, is one of the biggest challenges we face. But it's something that I think we have to face. The gold standard of research is research for practice and for implementation is co-production. There are other models that, that can work where co-production doesn't work. So, for example, if you're working with a community that's not quite ready to get in there and have a robust discussion on the nature of a research project, there are ways of skilling up that community so that they are, and maybe a collaborative model to start with that turns into a co-production model down the track is a better model. So we're starting to study and learn how to do this well. And indeed to publish academic papers on how to do it well. But we also try to be a bit more practical and publish guides and talk to each other and so on. We need to change the incentives and opportunities. So Martine already talked about the way in which universities are beginning to change the incentives for university-based researchers around getting research that has real-world impact. But we need to do a lot more of that, and we need to do it a lot better. And I think we also need to change the incentives and opportunities and time availability for people in government, for people in NRM organisations, to be able to do it from the other end as well. And we need more knowledgepreneurs. So this is a term that I picked up from my partner in crime, Cathy Oak, who's also a knowledge broker in one of the other hubs, and she picked it up from Deborah Roberts. And I want to do a shout out to the knowledgepreneurs in this room, Dan in particular, and Jenny, if you're here, for helping to bring us into the South Australian family by the work that you're doing to connect research and practice. But we need a lot more of it. I think South Australian government is doing particularly well to have positions that are there to actually look at the world of research and bring that into government. But I think we could do a lot more and continue to build on the existing work that's being done across the board to strengthen those partnerships. Thanks.